Hey everyone. I was loading a video for my clients to do my monthly inner transmission, and I saw on YouTube that I have some subscribers. Not many, but it sort of made me think about why am I not using YouTube as a platform? So I figured I should. And I think what I'm going to do is start to host my story weaving segment on YouTube. But I'll get back to that in a little bit. I figured the best thing I could do since the last public video I put on YouTube was about my little sabbatical from social media and how I needed to take a step back from my offerings and sort of put on the blinders to really get into the how, what, and why of my panic attacks um, and my anxiety. And man, I could not have been more right to take that sabbatical. Um, Yeah, it was interesting. So basically, if you didn't see the last video, I had a severe panic attack while I was alone with my daughter, and it was the most ungrounded and disconnected I'd ever felt during a panic attack. My mind just was not here, and it was terrifying. It was really terrifying. I do suffer from PTSD from some years of severe abuse, and anxiety and panic attacks are not something new to me, but they are something that I um, typically understand how to get back to myself for, and I don't have them very often. And recently, I have been having them more and more until I had that big explosion of the severe panic attack with my daughter. um, During my time um, away, I had some time to really reflect and put myself into my own practice and get to the bottom of what happened. Um, I spoke to a psychologist who is also a Akashic Records reader, and I think that gave me a really special way of connecting and being vulnerable and honest about some things. Um, I did decide that it is time for me to look to other sources outside of practices that are going to help me with my anxiety. And I think destigmatizing taking medication or certain substances for your anxiety or panic attacks is very important. I think in the spiritual community, we are really lucky that a lot of people are big mental health advocates, but there is kind of a weird um, thing in place where, these panic attacks are showing for a certain reason, and it's up to you to really work through it. And yes, while some of that is true, we also have to remember that we are organic matter, and there's just so much going on in our world and so much information and technology happening that has never happened this quickly, this much ever in the history of humans being human. And so our organic natural body can't take, all of this overstimulation. And I think that getting outside help, there's just nothing wrong with that. So I'm on a low dosage of Zoloft. It was a game changer for me. I didn't realize I was suffering from postpartum, and it was affecting um, the anxiety and the panics that I was having. The other thing too is like my spiritual work and my energy work that I'm doing, there's just it's kind of like orange juice, right? There's sediment at the bottom, and I was shaking everything up to move energy around. So some stuff was coming up, and I'm really grateful it did. One of the worst panic attacks I've ever had was right after my daughter was born, we were going into the room that we would be staying in, and there was like birds and dragonflies hitting the window, and I had such a huge panic attack. I really thought that I was going to drop her, and at this point I thought that I was going to keep her in the room with us. And right when I was in the middle of this panic attack, the nurse came in and she asked to take her to the nursery. And if I didn't have that panic attack, I would not have given her to this nurse. And what happened was my daughter stopped breathing in the nursery. So if we had kept her in and we would have fallen asleep, she would have passed away. Um, and I'm not saying every anxiety attack is going to save my life, but in this instance, I don't know what really came through, but it dawned on me that, I have a very complicated relationship with my mother, my biological mother. She gave me away when I was born, and when I was younger, and um, she suffers from mental health issues, schizophrenia, and watching somebody go through that, it's like really, really hard to watch. Um, she was always in bed a lot. She was not, she had social anxiety, but those aren't like words that we really had back then, like in the 80s and 90s, and um, or at least that I knew as a child. And I just always like struggled with, why she never fought for me. And when I was with her, like why she couldn't like quote get it together. So in that I also struggled with like feeling not good enough, feeling not loved by the person that's supposed to love me, feeling like I lacked that maternal mother instinct because I didn't have a representation of that, even though my grandmother was essentially my mother. But after this most recent panic attack, which instigated the sabbatical, it dawned on me that my mother had postpartum and had anxiety. And she unfortunately was in a very abusive relationship with somebody else who also suffered from PTSD from the Vietnam War. So my dad was violent and abusive, and she had no support system. Mental health was not really a thing in the early 80s. And when I had my own panic attack, I would have done anything to keep my daughter safe. And so what I realized, and it was like a thunderbolt, was that my mother gave me out of love, not because she didn't love me. And I think that coming to that conclusion, I wouldn't have come to that conclusion unless I would have been in her exact shoes, because that panic attack didn't feel like something I had gone through before. And I think that really putting myself in her place not only gave me such a different way of looking at things that I've gone through in my life and feelings that I've had in my life. Um, it gave me compassion for her, and it gave me compassion for me as well, because I was also a very young mother once. My son, I had him when I was 19, and we do the best that we can. And sometimes as other young single moms, there's things that we wish we didn't did, or things that we wish we could have done better, or things we beat ourselves up about, even though logically we shouldn't. And I think that being in those shoes and having the compassion dissolve and transmute all of the resentment I held also helped me give that compassion to myself. And so in this like huge monumental moment, um it created this space for things to come through. It created a space where I could let go of really old and heavy baggage and hurt. Um, it gave me the space to redefine certain programming that has been with me for so long. And it really, it doesn't change what happened, but it changes and cleans the lens in which I see things happen. And I think that I'm incredibly grateful for that. I'm incredibly grateful for that experience, as hard as it was. Um, and it just, we talk about compassion and grace like we just know exactly what that means, and we don't. We have to practice it. And that really gave me an opportunity to fully practice that and surrender to it. Um, so with that, it granted a lot of space for me to let go of some stuff and receive. So, in that time, I was reading like a maniac and I was listening to my guides. And, I was really scared that being on medication or Zoloft was going to affect my relationship with spirit. But, you know, um, ultimately, man, God is bigger than medication. So, or the divine or whatever spirit is bigger than that, and I've said that to clients before. I am definitely a believer in science. I am definitely a believer in using your own discernment and what is right for you. And I've tried all of the other stuff. I've tried the different mushrooms and ashwagandha and herbs and practices, but this is just what I needed in this moment, and I'm happy that I listened to myself. Um, but everything was coming through and it was hitting me hard, and I have never felt so alive and so creative and so like excited about things, because so much has come through for me to offer and to get into connection with community. And it's crazy because now I'm in a place where we are about to move, and there's a possibility that I might be opening a brick and mortar. And I have curriculum finally coming out because I got the final parts that I was asking for forever. And I'm going to start offering a segment called Story Weaving here on YouTube. So story weaving came about because I had COVID and I was laying in bed scrolling along, and I was thinking like, gosh, like spiritual and wellness industry or Instagram can be a little exhausting. All this like let go, receive the things you're supposed to do, not do, the liminal space, that this, that, the other. And I was thinking like, where is the fun stuff? Like, where is the weird, otherworldly, wild shit that happens to us that like puts us on this path of like believing in something outside of ourselves or looking for something? That's the fun stuff. And I think a lot of us don't share that because we're so afraid of looking crazy. But like wellness is, like my teacher Naha says, she's like, wellness, like we're not well, we're all crazy. Um, But here's the other thing. There's a line in the Red Book by Carl Jung, and I'm a huge Carl Jung fan. And he quotes another person saying essentially like, this idea of crazy, which I feel like ties into this whole video itself, is look, if it affects your health, if it's something of the body, obviously you want to take care of it. But we have to remember there's a level of like crazy. Um, or lunacy that we need to reach in order to receive like divine language and divine prominence and those messages. That's what we talk about, like the Fool in tarot is that that lightning bolt, that energy, that otherworldly thing that comes through, you're gonna have to be okay with looking like the fool for a little bit, right? Because like not everyone's gonna get it. And especially when it's like new. I think we live in a society where we look at the formula of success and we feel like we have to follow it. But in order to be revolutionary and to be radical, we have to be willing to look like the fool. And I think that that is all what spirituality is. It's I just had this conversation. It's radical compassion. It's radical listening. It's radical trust. Um, and it's crazy, right? Like the things that we believe in, it's due to faith and trust. And it's always got to be that little thing that makes us feel like there is no way that happened. Because it's the only way they or spirit can be like, we're here. So I'm going to start hosting this segment where I'll share some of my stories and interview other practitioners and just regular people about maybe some crazy otherworldly situations, things that have happened, come up for them. So maybe that we can like A, have a little fun, and B, not feel like we're alone in our craziness. So with that being said, I really hope you subscribe. I'm really excited to get started on this. You can find me on Instagram at Divine Void Sophia, on my website, divinevoidsophia.com, and I'm on Patreon. So I hope to see you around and I hope that you enjoy what I have coming. Thanks.